He had 7 seconds left to live, and he spent 4 of them laughing. The storm hit at midnight, not wind, but a strange boiling tide that made the sea look like white bone. Suddenly, the compass spun a full circle and stopped pointing north. It locked onto the captain's own bleeding hand. No one aboard knew the true name written on the skin-bound map. No one except the man they had thrown overboard an hour ago. His name was Edward Thorne, and somewhere directly beneath their hull, the water was starting to breathe.
To find a dead man's gold, you must first burn a living man's empire. Thorne's crew didn't sail for the mythical Isle of Skulls. They raided the burning archives of the British Crown itself. The goal was simple: steal the royal ledger. But standing in the smoke was Julian Vance, Thorne's oldest rival, looking far too elegant for an arsonist. Vance held the only exit, but instead of fighting, Vance smiled, dropped a key, and whispered a secret that changed everything. Thorne wasn't just a pirate. He was currently on the king's official payroll. The last pirate king was a legal governor, and the ledger proved his next target was his own people.
You cannot navigate the Caribbean with a normal map when the sea itself is trying to forget you. The navigator, an eccentric old madman who claimed you could smell a storm 3 days before it formed, laughed as he touched the skin map. He didn't look at the lines, he felt the scars. He claimed the map wasn't showing islands, it was a timeline of every execution ordered by Commodore Harrington, the relentless Navy officer obsessed with Thorne. Suddenly, Isla, the first mate, noticed something horrifying. The latest scar on the map matched the exact shape of the captain's own facial wound. Before anyone could speak, the lantern died. Trust on a pirate ship is a luxury bought with silver, and Thorne was completely bankrupt. He caught Isla by the wrist just as her signaling lantern hit the sea. He expected a plea for mercy. Instead, she laughed softly, pointing into the unnatural fog creeping across the deck. The signal wasn't for the British Navy, it was for Julian Vance, who had already boarded them from the starboard side. But the real reversal came from the mist itself. Harrington's massive flagship didn't fire its cannons, it simply rammed them, completely silent, with the Commodore standing alone at the bow, holding an executioner's noose. Commodore Harrington didn't want the Pirate King in chains, he wanted him broken. As swords clashed on the slippery deck, Harrington didn't aim for Thorne's heart. He sliced open the fresh water barrels, flooding the deck. Thorne froze, his mask of confidence shattering. His deepest, unnamed fear was staring him in the face, rising water. He backed away, trembling like a child. Harrington smiled, raising his blade for the final strike. But it was Julian Vance who intercepted the blow. Vance looked at Harrington and said, "Only I get to ruin him." Then Vance pulled a pin on a keg of wildfire. The explosion saved their lives, but the sea always collects its debts. Crippled and leaking, the ship drifted onto a jagged black coral reef known as the Gallows. The tide was falling fast. If they didn't patch the hull within 10 minutes, the ship would snap in half. Thorne stood by the rail, completely paralyzed by the black water swirling below. Seeing his terror, Isla stepped forward, quietly suspicious but fiercely loyal. She tied a line around her waist and dove into the abyss. When she surfaced, her face was white. The hull wasn't damaged from the outside. Someone had chopped through the wood from within. A king is never safe in his own castle, especially when the walls are made of rotting oak. Thorne kicked open his cabin door, sword drawn, expecting a traitor. Instead, he found the navigator sitting in pitch darkness, surrounded by bleeding candles. The madman had the skin map laid out, and he was using his own blood to feed the compass. The needle wasn't spinning anymore. It was locked directly onto the navigator's own chest. He looked up at Thorne, his eyes wide and vacant. "The treasure isn't gold, Edward," he whispered. "The king buried his own heart, and I am the box." Julian Vance didn't die in the wildfire. He had simply found a better ship. He climbed through the window, smelling of salt and scorched gunpowder, pointing a flintlock at Thorne's head, but he didn't shoot. He forced them to sail into the graveyard of ships, the exact coordination the bleeding compass demanded. This wasn't an island, it was a massive vortex of ruined warships captured by Harrington over 20 years. And sitting right in the center of the wreckage was Vance's own abandoned vessel, its sails completely drenched in fresh, warm human blood. The legendary prize of the Caribbean wasn't gold, it was a mirror. Thorne and Isla broke into the captain's cabin of the ghost ship, their boots splashing in the blood covering the floorboards. In the center sat the king's chest, wide open. Inside lay no silver, no jewels, only a massive cracked glass mirror. Thorne stepped forward, looking for his own reflection, but the glass didn't show his face. It showed Commodore Harrington standing directly behind him in the darkness of the cabin, holding an iron key that matched the wound on the navigator's chest. "You cannot run from a man who shares your blood." Harrington stepped out from the shadows, revealing the truth that the royal ledgers tried to burn. He wasn't Thorne's hunter, he was Thorne's older brother, the very boy Thorne thought had drowned 20 years ago. The sea hadn't taken him, it had twisted him into a monster in a navy uniform. Thorne backed away, his childhood terror returning tenfold. He looked to Isla for help, but Isla slowly raised her weapon, pointing it directly at Thorne's heart. "The Navy pays better, Edward," she whispered, "and your brother promised me your ship."
Isla didn't shoot to kill, she shot to break the chain. The bullet grazed Thorne's old facial scar, blinding him with blood and gunpowder. But the blast shattered the iron cuffs Harrington had locked onto his wrists. In the smoke, Isla grabbed his collar. "Move, you fool!" she screamed. She hadn't betrayed him, she had played Harrington to get close enough to free him. But as they burst onto the deck, Julian Vance was waiting. He had the dying navigator holed over the side of the ship, dangling above the black, churning sea. "To conquer your fear, you must throw away your future." Thorne looked at the water where the navigator had vanished. His childhood promise echoed in his mind. He couldn't let another person drown because of him. With a wild laugh, Thorne ripped the blood-drunk compass from his belt and hurled it far out into the dark waves. Vance, driven entirely by greed for the ultimate prize, didn't hesitate. He dived over the rail after it, abandoning his leverage. And right then, the sea did something impossible. The wind died completely. The waves stopped. A dead, frozen calm settled over the graveyard.
The ocean isn't a place, it's an executioner waiting for the jury to finish deliberating. Without wind, Harrington's flagship pulled directly alongside Thorne's crippled vessel. No cannons fired. There was no point. The whirlpool was widening, swallowing the outer ring of the ship graveyard. Harrington walked across the boarding plank alone, holding nothing but a bottle of wine. He sat on Thorne's deck and poured 2 glasses. "The Pirate King was never a man, Edward," Harrington said quietly. "It's a curse. The sea requires one brother to hunt and the other to flee. If we stop, the sea takes everything back." When the world spins out of control, a pirate is the only one who can stand upright. The whirlpool struck with a roar that deafened the sky. Both ships tilted violently into the abyss, their masts locking together like broken fingers. Thorne fought his brother on the vertical deck, gravity itself trying to pull them into the churning throat of the sea.
Thorne's fear was gone, replaced by pure survival. Suddenly, Julian Vance exploded from the foam, half drowned and manic. He didn't want the gold anymore, he just wanted blood. He drove his rapier right through Harrington's chest, laughing as the vortex dragged them both under.
The sea doesn't forget a promise, and it never leaves a throne empty. The rope was snapping, unable to hold both of them. Thorne looked at Isla, his mask of confidence completely gone, replaced by a quiet, peaceful smile. He had finally conquered his fear. He used his final breath to tell her to keep the ship clean, then cut his own line, plunging into the black maw. 3 months later, Isla sailed a calm, grey ocean. She opened Thorne's cabin drawer. The blood-drunk compass sat inside. Suddenly, the needle spun, locked onto a coordinate, and pointed straight down, into the open water, where a green lantern light was flickering beneath the waves.